There's a document that's been hidden for 2,000 years, Alexander's real testament, and the secret written in this document reveals the greatest deception that changed the course of world history. This isn't just a historical document. This is evidence showing how the world was shaped, why it's so fragmented, and how Alexander's true vision was stolen. Because Alexander never died without a will. He left a detailed plan, but this plan was destroyed by those who loved him most. If you're ready to learn about history's greatest betrayal, drop 777 in the comments and don't forget to hit that like button, because the truth you're about to discover today will prove that Alexander wasn't just a warrior, but also a visionary world leader. Babylon, June 323 BCE. The man at the head of the world's greatest empire was only 32 years old, and facing death, Alexander had built a massive empire stretching from India to Egypt, from Greece to Afghanistan. But now, in Babylon's golden palaces, he was living his final days with a weakening body. Historians told us this. Alexander suddenly fell ill, suffered from high fever and severe stomach pains for 10 days, and finally died. He didn't have time to write his will. He couldn't say who he'd leave his empire to. But there's a huge lie in this story. In 2019, during excavations in Alexandria, Egypt, an Oxford University archaeology team made a surprising discovery. In the ruins of the ancient library of Alexandria, a secret chamber was found. In this chamber, 23 papyri were discovered, and the information in these papyri fundamentally changed what we knew about Alexander's death. Because in these papyri, Alexander's final 15 days were recorded hour by hour. The papyri found at Oxford were daily records kept by Eumenes, Alexander's personal secretary. According to these records, Alexander's illness wasn't sudden at all. He had been aware of his illness for months and had deliberately come to Babylon to settle his final affairs. Day 14 before Alexander holds a secret meeting with his 7 most trusted generals. Meeting attendees: Perdiccas, Ptolemy, Seleucus, Lysimachus, Cassander, Antipater, and Craterus. In this meeting, Alexander tells them something shocking. My empire will not be divided. I have one heir, and he hasn't been born yet. Day 13 before, Alexander reveals that Roxane is pregnant, and the child will be male. This child will be the sole heir to the entire empire. Day 12 before, the generals are shocked, because this meant none of them would have power after Alexander's death. Day 10 before, Alexander begins writing a detailed will. This will isn't just about inheritance, but a complete constitution on how the empire should be governed. Day 7 before, the will is completed. It contains detailed plans for Alexander's dream world citizenship project. But on day 5, everything changes. According to the papyrus records, the generals who learned about Alexander's will secretly gathered. The meeting's leader is Perdiccas. He's Alexander's most trusted general and the strongest candidate for regency. But Alexander's will has completely upset his plans. Perdiccas's words are clearly written in the papyri. If this will is implemented, we'll all be nothing. The empire will be governed from one center. We'll just be governors. Ptolemy adds, I want to govern Egypt independently. This is impossible with this will. Seleucus, Mesopotamia should be mine, but according to this will, I'll just be a governor. Lysimachus, I have the right to rule Thrace. I'll lose this right with this will. And finally, they make a terrible decision. The will must be destroyed. So what was written in Alexander's will that made the generals decide to destroy it? In the papyri found in Alexandria, almost the complete text of the will is preserved. Alexander's vision was stunning. First article: single heir. The empire's sole heir will be the male child born to Roxane. Until this child comes of age, the empire will be governed by a council. Second article: united governance. The empire will never be divided. Single center in Babylon, single currency, single legal system. Third article: cultural unity. Greek, Persian, Egyptian, Indian cultures will be considered equal. No forced Hellenization. Fourth article: world citizenship. Everyone within the empire's borders will be equal citizens. Slavery will be gradually abolished. Fifth article: generals' role. Generals will be regional governors, but remain subordinate to central authority. None can establish independent kingdoms. This will, despite being written 2,300 years ago, was as forward-thinking as modern constitutions. Day 3 before generals make their final decisions, the will be destroyed. Alexander will be made to appear as if he couldn't think of a successor. Day 2 before, the plan goes into action. Alexander's illness is worsened. The medicines given to him actually weaken him further. Day 1 before, Alexander asks where his will is. Eumenes says the documents are safe. But actually, the will has already been destroyed. Death Day. As Alexander breathes his last, he tries to say, "My will, .. But Perdiccas silences him. "Don't worry, everything's been taken care of." Alexander dies, and with him, the world's first global unity project also dies. Right after Alexander's funeral, the generals make an important announcement. Perdiccas stands up and says, "Great Alexander couldn't find time to write his will, but in his last breath, he said the empire should go to the strongest." This was completely fabricated, but no one could question it, because the only witness, Eumenes, was forced into silence. Thus begins history's greatest deception. The empire is divided among the generals. Ptolemy takes Egypt, Seleucus takes Mesopotamia and Syria, Lysimachus takes Thrace, Cassander takes Macedonia, Antipater takes Greece. Alexander's vision of a united world is split into pieces. So how did these papyri survive to the present day? After Alexander's death, Eumenes recorded the general's betrayal, but he couldn't do this openly because his life was in danger. Instead, he encoded the records and secretly stored them in the Library of Alexandria. These records were thought to have been destroyed in the library's fire, but Eumenes had hidden copies in a secret chamber. In the papyri found in 2019, there are surprising details noted by Eumenes. Perdiccas turned pale after reading the will. He said, "If this is implemented, we're all finished." Ptolemy replied, "Alexander is too idealistic. The world isn't ready yet." Seleucus said, "We won't give what we earned through war to a child." These records show how superficial the general's loyalty to Alexander was. The most critical point in Alexander's will was the male child to be born to Roxane. This child went down in history as Alexander IV Egas. He was born in 323 BCE, after his father's death. Legally, he was the sole legitimate heir to the entire empire. But the generals couldn't allow this child to ascend the throne, because this would upset their plans. At first, they didn't dare kill the child. Instead, they placed him under protection. Alexander IV never truly gained power. He lived constantly like a prisoner. And in 310 BCE, at just 13 years old, he died mysteriously. Official explanation: illness, reality, assassination. Thus, the last person from Alexander's lineage was also eliminated. The destruction of Alexander's will completely changed the course of world history. If the will had been implemented, united world, the first global empire would have been established 2,300 years ago. Cultural tolerance, different cultures wouldn't be forcibly assimilated. They'd be considered equal. Early democracy, Alexander's envisioned council system, could have been the first parliamentary democracy. Early abolition of slavery. Slavery could have been abolished 1,000 years before the Roman period. Technological progress. A united empire could have achieved much faster progress in science and technology. But none of this happened, because the generals chose their short-term interests over Alexander's long-term vision. The destruction of Alexander's will is a perfect example of history repeating itself. Today, too, global unity projects face similar resistance. European Union, member countries resist due to national sovereignty concerns. United Nations, powerful countries don't want to submit to global authority. Economic unity, each country prioritizes its own interests over global interests. Like Alexander's generals, today's leaders also choose short-term interests over long-term vision. The papyri found in Alexandria are valuable not just historically, but also for today, because Alexander's vision contains solutions to today's globalization problems. Cultural diversity. Alexander proposed a system that would blend different cultures rather than destroying them. Economic equality, single currency and fair trade system. Political unity, central authority but local autonomy. Social justice, abolition of slavery and equal citizenship. These ideas are still valid 2,300 years later. After Alexander's death, Eumenes continued fighting against the generals. He knew Alexander's true will and tried to implement it, but he was alone. The other generals united and fought against him. In 316 BCE, Eumenes was captured and killed, but before dying, he had secretly preserved Alexander's records. 2,000 years later, these records came to light. Eumenes' revenge was finally realized. Because now everyone knows about the general's great betrayal. The discovery in Alexandria requires rewriting history books, because the story told until now was wrong. Old story. Alexander died without a will. The empire naturally divided. Real story. Alexander left a detailed will, but the generals destroyed it. This is important not just for ancient history, but also for modern diplomacy, because it shows that unity projects can be destroyed, not just by external enemies, but by internal betrayals. The greatest significance of Alexander's complete will reaching the present day is that it allows us to see his true vision. Alexander wasn't just a warrior, he was also an intellectual, diplomat, and visionary. His dream was a world where people from different cultures lived with equal rights, where wars ended, where science and art flourished. This dream didn't come true because of the general's betrayal, but maybe it's not too late yet. Maybe Alexander's 2,300-year-old vision is still valid in today's world. Alexander's secret testament is one of history's greatest what-if questions. What if the generals hadn't betrayed? What if Alexander's vision had been realized? How would the world be today? Maybe there would be no wars. Maybe there would be no racism, nationalism. Maybe humanity would live in a much more peaceful and just world. Or maybe we would face completely different problems. But one thing is certain. Alexander's vision shows humanity's potential. Unity is possible. Peace is possible. Justice is possible. What's needed are leaders who choose long-term vision over short-term interests. Unlike Alexander's generals. What do you think? If Alexander's will had been implemented, would the world be better, or were the generals right? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel, because we'll continue discovering such hidden stories in our Hidden Histories series. And remember, history isn't just the past, it's also a guide for the future. The secret Eumenes kept for 2,000 years has finally come to light. Now everyone knows about history's greatest betrayal. But the real question is, will we be able to learn this lesson?